Hello, dear viewers. I'm glad to welcome you to the Alien Relatives channel. Dasha, please pay for my utilities this month, otherwise my pension is like a sparrow's tear. I won't live to see Friday. Her mother-in-law, Rima Arkadyevna, rang on the phone with the intonation of an expired theater ticket. It seemed like a complaint, but it seemed a shame to throw it away. Dasha pressed the phone to her ear with her shoulder, continuing to chop carrots. For a second, the knife paused above the cutting board. Last night, she had seen Rima Arkadyevna at the mall. The pensioner, whose income allegedly barely exceeded the subsistence minimum, walked confidently, like a Terminator, out of an Italian shoe boutique, swinging a designer shopping bag that cost more than her entire year's utilities. Okay, Rim Arkadyevna, send the receipt to my messenger, Dasha replied evenly, ending the call. The carrots were chopped with a peculiar rhythmic crunch. In Dasha's head, like a good calculator, the inconsistencies were piling up. Ilya, her husband, had been acting like he'd swallowed a live bug for the past 2 weeks. He'd flinch at calls, hide his phone screen, and answer questions about his weekend plans with the vagueness of a London morning. But the most important thing was hard to hide. For their wedding exactly a year ago, Dasha's father, Grigory Borisovich, had given him a hefty wad of cash, 1 million rubles. The money was earmarked for an extension to their living space. Ilya had insisted that the sum be deposited into his personal savings account at the bank. The interest there is so high that in a year it will be enough to repair the toilet just from the profits, he said, waving his arms like a millstone. Dasha, accustomed to trusting logic, agreed. The account was transparent. The bank was reliable. But now the air in the apartment distinctly smelled of lies. In the evening, Ilya stumbled home, took off his jacket, and immediately slipped into the bathroom. The sound of the water drowned out his footsteps. Dasha put the towel aside, went to the jeans abandoned on the nightstand, and fished out the phone. She had known the password for a long time. Ilya set the year of birth of his precious mother on all devices. The screen obediently flashed. Dasha went to the banking app. Her finger quickly scrolled through the menu to the Savings Account tab. The figure 14 rubles, 50 kopecks flickered alone on the balance. Her eyebrows didn't even twitch. Her face remained as calm as that of an Egyptian sphinx that had just been harassed. Tourists. Dasha opened the transaction history. The account was cleared 3 weeks ago. Transaction 1, 300,000 rubles. Transfer to the account of Comfort Empire LLC. Transaction 2, 200,000. Payment for services at the private dental clinic Zemchug. Transaction 3, 500,000. Cash withdrawal from an ATM. Dasha put the phone back in exactly the same place, millimeter by millimeter, corner to corner. She wasn't going to interrogate anyone, throw plates, or slam doors. That's for the weak. Strong women simply issue an invoice with a penalty. If Ilya decided to play his mother's secret sponsor at his father's expense, then the rules of the game change. In the morning, after sending her husband off to work, Dasha began her own investigation. The name Comfort Empire came up in the search engine as a luxury furniture salon in the city center. Dasha applied light makeup and put on a formal suit, which she usually used for visits to. She went to the tax office and drove to the address. The salon greeted customers with the scent of expensive leather and woody aromatherapy. A consultant with slicked-back hair and a name tag named Edward immediately floated up to her. "Good afternoon. Can I help you?" He purred, his gaze sliding appraisingly over her bag. "Good afternoon. My husband, Ilya, recently bought a sofa from you. I'd like to order a chair to go with it, but we forgot the exact color of the upholstery." Dasha gave the most innocuous, slightly absent-minded smile, batting her eyelashes. "The order was made out to Rima Arkadyevna. That's his mother. Stroitley Street, Building 10. Please check our database." Edward, delighted by the prospect of a new sale, began typing on his tablet. "Yes, of course. Aha, I see. The order was delivered a week ago. Model, Roman Emperor. Color, blue graphite. Genuine calfskin upholstery. Reinforced transformation mechanism. 300,000 exactly. A great choice for a pensioner, I tell you." When she sat on it in the salon, she was positively glowing. "The chair to go with it will cost $85. We're finalizing it? I need to measure the corner in the living room. I'm afraid it won't fit." Dasha smiled apologetically. "Thank you, Edward. You've been a great help." Stepping outside, she took a breath of fresh air. 300,000 for a leather sofa for the woman who yesterday was begging for money for electricity and water. Lovely. Next came a call to Zemchug Dental Clinic. Introducing herself to Rima Arkadyevna's assistant, Dasha clarified the time of her next appointment. The receptionist happily announced that the zirconium veneers on her upper jaw had been successfully installed. All that remained was polishing. 200,000 took the form of her mother-in-law's perfect, snow-white smile. Dasha solved this mystery by evening, simply by going to the Zalovki page. Ilya's sister posted photos from their dacha on social media. Only it wasn't their old dacha. The photo showed off a brand new, insulated log bathhouse recently erected on the property. The caption read, "Mommy gave me a royal gift. Now we'll be sweating it out on weekends." The picture was complete. Ilya had squandered his father-in-law's million on his relatives' visits. He'd plundered someone else's budget with the grace of a hungry bear at an apiary. In the evening, Dasha served baked fish for dinner. Ilya was picking at his plate with a fork, trying not to look his wife in the eyes. "Ilyusha, I was just talking to Dad," Dasha said, sipping her tea. Her voice flowed like thick honey. "My husband choked on a bone." "And what? Did he ask about money?" "No, why would he? He trusts us. It's something else. Dad wants to transfer his commercial warehouse on the bypass road to us, to the two of us in equal shares." Ilya stopped chewing. His eyes lit up with a greedy light. "My father-in-law's warehouse was bringing in excellent money. So what exactly is he proposing?" my husband asked cautiously. "Dad is a man of the old school. He says he needs to see your willingness to invest in the family without regard for profit. He said, let Ilya transfer his car to Dasha as a gift, just as a gesture of trust. In marriage, it doesn't matter who the car is registered to. You're the one driving it anyway, and the next day, Dad registers the warehouse in our name, and we're in the sweet spot." Dasha looked at her husband with an expression of absolute virtue. Ilya owned a brand new crossover, which he bought before the wedding. The market price of the car now exceeded $3 million. The car was his greatest pride. He waxed it more often than he brushed his teeth. Ilya froze. A complex calculation process was going on in his head. On one side was the car, on the other, his father-in-law's warehouse. Plus, he was consumed by panic over the $1 million he'd spent. If his father-in-law found out there was no money, there would be no warehouse and there would be a huge scandal. Transferring the car to Dasha's name was an excellent way to deflect suspicion, present himself as the perfect husband, and then enjoy the proceeds from the warehouse. Dad said it needs to be done by Wednesday, Dasha added casually, popping a piece of broccoli into her mouth. Otherwise, he'll register the warehouse in my brother's name. Horror at the loss of potential profit flashed in Ilya's eyes. No problem, he blurted out, slamming his palm on the table. We're going to the notary tomorrow. We're family, Dasha. You need to be trusted, and your dad even more so. Dash smiled. Her smile was wide and sincere, like a fisherman's when his float suddenly goes underwater. The notary was businesslike, with the face of a man who had seen too much human stupidity to be surprised by anything. The documents had been prepared in advance. Ilya signed with a sweeping signature, transferring ownership of the car to his wife. The seal slapped onto the paper with a dull final sound. Congratulations on expanding your fleet, Daria Grigorievna, the notary said dryly, handing her a packet of documents. Ilya, pleased with his brilliant move, twirled the keys in his fingers. So Dashel, when's Dad re-registering the warehouse? He asked as they stepped outside. Dad is coming to visit us on the weekend, and we'll discuss everything. By the way, Rim Markadyevna is inviting us for tea on Friday. She says she's got some new things in her apartment and wants to show them off. She invited Dad too. Let's go. Of course. Ilya blossomed. He thought his life was a success. The storm had passed, and he was a great schemer. Friday arrived. Rima Arkadyevna's apartment greeted the guests with the rich aroma of baked goods and a chic uncharacteristic of a pensioner. In the center of the living room, taking up a good half of the room, he towered, that same Roman emperor. The sofa, a deep graphite color, gleamed with leather sides, like a parked SUV. Dasha's father, Grigory Borisovich, a stocky man with a gaze that pierced people through and through, entered the room, took off his jacket, and stared with interest at the piece of furniture. Rima Arkadyevna bustled around, sparkling with new, with dazzling white teeth. The smile never left her face, reflecting off the polished surface of the sideboard. Come in, my dears, sit down. Be careful, this is genuine leather. Don't scratch it with your keys, my mother-in-law chirped, adjusting that very silk scarf around her neck. Dasha sat on the edge of the sofa. The leather softly sprang under her. Ilya settled in next to her, his whole appearance radiating well-being. Grigory Borisovich walked around the sofa, patted the armrest with his heavy palm. In the construction business, he knew a thing or two about not only concrete, but also luxury interiors for clients. A powerful thing, my father stated, sitting down opposite. Italian School of Assembly. Top quality leather. My partner got the same kind for his office. Rima Arkadyevna blushed like a schoolgirl who got an A. Oh, come on, Grigory Borisovich, I was just saying that. I decided to treat myself in my old age. I saved up a little, cut back on expenses. I need to live comfortably for myself. Grigory Borisovich frowned. In his head, mathematics and logic had never clashed. He knew the pension amounts in the country as well as the Minister of Finance. Ilyusha, Dasha's father, narrowed his eyes, looking at his son-in-law. Where did your mother get 300,000 for such a sofa if her pension is 15? The air in the room suddenly became thick as jelly. Ilya jerked as if he'd been electrocuted. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. A thick bead of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. His face took on the color of freshly welded brick. Mom was saving it, he squeezed out, his eyes darting around the ceiling in search of salvation. And I helped a little with the bonus. What bonus? Grigory Borisovich asked, his voice losing all geniality. You're on a salary, right? And I see, Rim Arkadyevna, you didn't get your teeth updated under the compulsory health insurance system. It cost at least 1,000. Rim Arkadyevna pressed her lips into a thin line, hiding the zirconium veneers. Grigory Borisovich, are you counting my money? The mother-in-law muttered with feigned indignation. My son has the right to help his mother. It does, Dasha intervened calmly. She put her cup of tea on the glass table. Only he didn't help with his own money, right, Ilya? Ilya curled up into a ball, pressing himself against the Emperor's leather upholstery. Dasha, what's wrong? What money? He stammered. Dasha took a neat stack of printouts and bank statements from her purse. She carelessly threw them on the table. 300,000 for the sofa, 200 for teeth, and 500 in cash, which miraculously coincided with the construction of a new bathhouse at your sister's. Exactly 1,000,000. The same one that Dad gave us for the apartment and which you, like a smart boy, put into your miracle account. Grigory Borisovich's face darkened. He slowly stood up. The chair beneath him creaked pitifully. You took my money, which I gave to start your family, and spent it on trinkets for Mom. The tester's voice rolled like gravel in the concrete mixer. Dad, don't worry. The issue has already been resolved. She cut Dasha's father off in an icy tone. She looked at her watch. The time was perfect. The doorbell rang. It was persistent and long, the way couriers usually do when they're impatient to deliver an order. Rim Arkadyevna jumped up, clutching her heart. Who is this? I'm not expecting anyone. Dasha stood up and went to the hallway. She opened the door. 4 strong men in logistics company uniforms stood on the threshold. The eldest, stocky man, with the appearance of a Tatar-Mongol Khan on vacation, held a waybill. Moving crew. Where's the furniture to go? The eldest asked in a deep voice. Genyok was written on his badge in marker. Follow me, Dasha commanded, pointing the way into the living room. Rima Arkadyevna, seeing the movers, backed away. Who are you? Get out of my apartment. Ilyusha, call the police. I don't advise wasting time on the police. Family matters, no one will mess with this. Guys, here's this graphite monster. Carefully disassemble it and load it. Dasha, are you crazy? Ilya drove in, trying to shield the sofa with his chest. "It's my mother's sofa." Zhenyok, the senior mover, approached Ilya and gently but firmly pushed it aside, like an empty cardboard box. "Sir, don't interfere with my work. We pay by the hour. Downtime will be at your expense. Mika, tighten the sides." The guys quickly took out their screwdrivers and got to work. The Roman emperor began to lose his majestic outline. Rim Markodyevna rushed towards Dasha, waving her arms. "You're a thief, you're robbing an elderly woman, I'll file a complaint against you." Dasha didn't back down. She looked her mother-in-law straight in the eye. "Write the complaint, and we'll file a counterclaim for embezzlement of a large sum of earmarked funds. It's not even about the courts. You, Rim Markodyevna, are living at someone else's expense. The sofa is being sent to my dacha. It was paid for with my father's money." Ilya, realizing the furniture was beyond saving, tried to change tactics. He fell to his knees in front of his father-in-law, who was watching with undisguised pleasure. "Grigory Borisovich, forgive me, the devil got me. I'll pay it all back. I'll work it off. We have a warehouse now, Dasha and I." Dasha laughed heartily. "What warehouse, Ilyusha?" "That non-existent Papa's warehouse, for the sake of which you yesterday deeded your car to me as a gift." Ilya froze. His jaw dropped. Awareness of a galactic-scale catastrophe was evident in his eyes. A car. What car? Rima Arkadyevna croaked, clutching the edge of the sideboard because the sofa underneath was already partially gone. The movers had carried away the first section. His crossover. Now, according to the documents, it was solely mine. So to speak, compensation for Rima Arkadyevna's teeth, your daughter's bathhouse, and emotional distress. Dasha twirled the car keychain in her fingers. "Your million, Dad, has been fully returned in the form of movable property, even with interest." Grigory Borisovich laughed so loudly that the crystal glasses in the cabinet shook. He approached his daughter and approvingly slapped her on the shoulder. Just like her mother, her grip was iron. The movers methodically carried out the remains of former luxury. Rima Arkadyevna's apartment was rapidly emptying. Without the giant sofa, the living room immediately seemed larger, but much poorer. A gaping dent in the carpet loomed in the middle of the room. Ilya sat on the floor, his head in his hands. He was left without a family income, without a car, and with the prospect of divorce, which was now inevitable. Dasha adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. "You'll pick up your things tonight." "Dasha, you can't do this," her mother-in-law whined, baring her 200,000 ruble teeth in a cry of despair. "This is his house. This is my premarital apartment, Rima Arkadyevna. Learn your laws." Dasha turned to leave. "Have a nice evening. Sitting on the floor is good for your posture." She followed her father down the stairs. Near the entrance, movers were carefully packing the leather sectional sofa into a van. Next to it, a brand new crossover gleamed with its fresh body, now rightfully hers. Dasha pressed a button on the key fob. The car gave a welcoming wink at the farm. Revenge shouldn't be a nice gesture. It must generate concrete financial benefits. And Dasha handled this task flawlessly. Thank you all for listening. This was Andre Bailey. Until next time.